Hello again, this is Natalie Thompson with GetGovernmentJobs Canada, and welcome to Module 3 of Getting Started with PSRS. In this module, we're going to look at how to configure our brand new PSRS account that we just created in Module 2. So I just want you to get to the PSRS website. Again, you can get there by typing in jobs.gc.ca into your browser address bar, and it will redirect you here. And we're going to go back up to the My Account in the menu and click on Sign In. So this should be a familiar screen to you by now. This is our login screen. We're going to go right down. And the username is the email that you set up in the last video. So I'll just get you to type that in. And we'll type in our password. Click on Login, and this will take us right back to our My Jobs menu. This is a standard screen that you're always going to get when you log into your account. Now, if you saw the second video in this series, then you'll be familiar with this list of items in here. And the one that we're interested in today is this Create Maintain Profile. And as you can see, there's a bunch of things that we're going to have to set up and configure in order to get this account working for us. There's a nice long list of things here, and only a few of them have green check marks. And everything else has nasty little red X's that we're going to have to change into green check marks if we want this to work. So we're going to go through the personal address and contact information. These first three were automatically set up when we set up the account, so the information that we typed in was automatically put into the fields in these sections. We now have to look at education, work locations, language, employment equity, resume, and all sorts of other things to get this working. And the first one we're going to look at is education. So if you click on the education link, it's going to take you into this box. And what you need to put in here is your education information, obviously. So it gives you some education level choices in this box down here. Grade school, I don't know why they have that in, because nobody wants to know about that. Secondary school and college and university, these are the ones that are the critical ones. So whichever one, I usually just start with your highest level attained. So we'll put in, I'm going to click on university, and we'll click on Add. And so what this has done is added in this new screen that we have to go through and click on the type of education that we have underneath that top level field. So I have a bachelor's degree from university. My area of study, I'll put in education. Education Institute. If you start typing the university that you went to, it will show up in here. So it's picked up University of Toronto. Month completed or to be completed. I graduated in June. And then you would put in the year it was completed, the number of years that you completed. So if it was a 4-year program and you completed the full 4 years, you would put those two numbers in here. If you didn't complete the program, or you took fewer than the standard course length, then you would also put that information here. For instance, if you only took 3 years to finish the 4-year course, you would put 3 and 4. So fill that information in and then click on Continue. So this has taken us on to the next screen, and it just gives us a summary of what we put in on the first screen, and now it's asking for a list of specialization groups. So if you had a major and a minor, for instance, or you did a double major, you could put in the types of stuff that you studied here. I'm just going to pick 2 here, just randomly. You would pick, of course, the ones that you actually did study, and we'll click on Continue to go to the next screen. So again, this is giving us more details, and we're just drilling down into the types of education here. So just pick whatever is relevant to yours. And click Save. And that will add in the education that we put in. If you have other degrees or other levels of education that you want to include, then you would just go through the process again and start here with the top level and then drill all the way down just the way that we did. So I'm going to say this one is complete, so we're going to click on back, and you'll see that the education now has a nice little green check mark. The next one we're going to look at is work locations. And this is telling the system where you're willing to work. Very important, because you don't want it spitting out a bunch of jobs at you that are in strange places that you have absolutely no intention of moving to just because they have a job that you'd be interested in. So I'm going to say Ontario, click continue. You fill in the ones that you're interested in. And it's going to take you to a secondary screen for more details. And there's lots and lots and lots of cities. Apparently we have lots of cities in Canada. And you're going to scroll down through all these different regions and pick the cities that you are willing to work in. I'm going to scroll all the way down to National Capital Region, and I'm going to say Ottawa and other locations within the National Capital Region, and click on continue. And then it asks you if you want to add additional provinces. You can click that and go through that whole process again drilling down, giving it more and more details that it asks for. Now I'm going to click back. I've got a nice little green check mark on work locations, so it's happy. Now I'm going to look at languages. So this one, the first one, is asking your first official language. This would be the one that you learn primarily and the one that you speak most often. And it's going to ask more details about your proficiency in various languages as we go down. So my language proficiency in English would be advanced. My language proficiency in French, I'd say, is intermediate, so I'll put that in there. And then this section here is quite important, where it asks you which official languages you wish to use in correspondence, during an interview, and during a written exam. Usually these things will also get double checked with you as you get further into a staffing process, but you do want to get that all set up right at the beginning, especially this correspondence one, because this is the language that they're going to use when they send you emails. I'm going to click English, and you notice that there's an option here for either. I don't know why they put that in. The way this works is if you put either, generally speaking, what's recommended from the back end side of this, from the human resources side, is that the language in which the candidate sends in their application. So if you send in your resume and your cover letter in English and you've selected either for your correspondence preferences, they will respond to you in the language in which you submitted your application. So if you send in an application in English, for instance, but you want to receive letters and emails from people in French, then make that clear in here. I'm just going to put English for everything, just because that's my preferred language. And here's an interesting section down here, just because we have a more and more multicultural society, and there's all sorts of different languages in here. So if you have a working ability in other languages, then definitely put that in here. And we'll just click Save. Back to our main menu, another little green check mark. Moving right along, we're going to go to this employment equity section. So click on that. And I'm just going to do a little brief aside here and mention that employment equity is one of those sort of touchy subjects when it comes to government staffing. I know everybody wants to know that they've been hired into a position because of their abilities and not because of any employment equity reasons. And certainly that is the overriding concern in any of these job processes, is whether the candidate is qualified for the process and the position in question. Having said that, however, the Government of Canada being what it is, there are employment equity quotas and regulations and things that they do have to take into consideration. And you will find that in quite a few of these processes, there's a little blurb in there about organizational needs and increasing the employment equity and diversity of certain employment equity populations. So if you fit any employment equity groups, my recommendation is always to fill this in and self-identify as being part of that group, just because if it's going to give you an edge in the job hiring process, then why not use it? So having said that, let's scroll down and see what's in here. Privacy notice, again, read that. And here's a definition of the purposes for which they would use your self-declared information regarding employment equity. So the first one is for appointment processes and statistics, and the second one is just for statistics. My recommendation would be to use purpose number 1 so that they can use this for appointment processes. So scroll down to this consent section, and here are your options. You can either say I'm not a member, or I don't want to complete this self-declaration form, or I wish to complete the self-declaration form. We're going to click on complete the self-declaration form and click on save or continue. That will take us to this next screen. And again, I'm going to choose collection purpose number 1. You can use my information to appointment to a process and also for statistics. So we're going to scroll a little bit further down and look at the choices for this. Now, gender is an employment equity designation group. For some of these processes, you'll find that women are listed as a designated group that they want to increase their representativeness in. So ladies, fill this in and click female. If you're male, well, that one's not going to help you much, but you can fill it in anyway. So the next section would be Aboriginal Peoples. It gives you the definition of what they consider to be an Aboriginal person. You can click yes or no as it applies to you. You can give further information, further details on that in this subsequent box if you wish to. You do not have to. It's good enough to just say yes. Next section is visible minorities. Again, there's the definition of what they consider a visible minority. You again click yes or no. I'm going to click no. And again, the optional further details, you can fill those in if you wish. You do not have to. If you're not one of those listed boxes, you can type in your own information here if you wish. Persons with a disability, definition. Select whether you are or are not a person with a disability. If you wish to provide further details, again, more boxes down there that you can check or not check as they belong to you. So, having filled in that, we're going to click on Save. It's going to take us back to our list, and there's another little green check mark. The next section is Resume. I'm going to skip that for a minute, and we'll look at these other things. Completed courses, you don't have to fill that in, and my recommendation is not to fill that in unless you are recently graduated and are looking to apply through the post-secondary recruitment program. So we're going to ignore that one, and we're going to look at employment tenure next. And this is where we tell the system what types of jobs we're willing to consider. So there's permanent, this would be indeterminate status, or temporary status, or seasonal. So whichever ones you're willing to accept, you would go through and put in the details here. So I'm going to say for this, I'm going to say full-time, part-time, permanent. I'm not interested in shift work. And for term employment, I'll say again, we'll say term employment of over 6 months, full-time. You would fill this in according to your own preferences and details and click on Save. Next section would be job categories and salary. And so these are just the general groups that are available within the federal government jobs that are out there. So I'm going to click clerical, secretarial, professional, administrative. You fill in the ones that you would like. This salary section, my recommendation is to just leave this blank because salaries within the federal government are always being renegotiated, and half the time these groups are working without a contract because the contract negotiations haven't caught up to the present. And so, and you'll see a lot on a lot of these posters as well that they'll list a salary for the group, but it'll have this fine print about this salary is currently under review. So rather than limit the jobs that show up for you, I would just leave this blank. and we'll click on Save. Program category. This is asking you about the types of job hiring processes that you're interested in. We're looking at jobs open to the public. If you're looking at FSWEP or post-secondary recruitment, if you're a student. If you're not a student, basically the only real one you're interested in at this point is the jobs open to the public. And we'll click on Save. So now the only one that we still need to deal with is the resume one. So let's click on that. And what you can do in here is your resume should have been set up elsewhere, and basically just copy and paste and tuck this resume in here and you're good to go. Another little brief aside here, if you've done your resume in something like Word, just be careful when you cut and paste, because the Word formatting does not translate well into this text-based editor here. So your fancy little bullets and things like that are not going to show up very well. So if you just do a straight cut and paste and dump it in here, you will definitely want to go through it afterwards and just make sure that everything is clear and there's no weird little characters or anything in there. And you just want to make it as clear and as easily readable as possible for the people who will be doing the screening. So I'm just going to put some information in here just so that we have something to save, and click, you would put your actual resume, and we'll click on Save. And that takes us back. Oh, it didn't like that. Okay, I guess it wants an actual resume. But anyhow, once you've done that, you'll have a list of green check marks except for this completed courses, which you don't need. And we're done configuring our account. We'll click on My Jobs menu. That takes us right back there. And that's it for today's video. The next thing that we're going to look at is how to search for jobs using PSRS. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.